Hello, very good afternoon to all of you. So this is the counterpart to the offline class that I have taken with the other half of your class in the morning. Today's class is on reading purposes and skills, where I shall be focusing on particularly the skills of skimming and scanning in strategies for effective reading. Let me share the PowerPoint with you first. Right. I think the last time that we met, we had spoken about the wide variety of texts that we are surrounded by. So we might say that, particularly in the world today, the importance of reading has declined, or we live in a culture where people are no longer so very much bothered or interested in reading. So is the reading culture really on the wane? Now, though there might be statistics given in support of that, you might actually say that that is not the case. What has actually happened is that the reading of the physical text or hard copies of books and other materials has been supplanted by the immense popularity of electronic texts. Okay, so we are reading them all the time. Whenever you are hooked on to your WhatsApp or your Instagram or Facebook messages or flipping through the various accounts on Instagram and Facebook pages, you're trolling through that, going through YouTube, you are nevertheless reading all the time. So just take the simple case of internet surfing. If you go to a site, if you can't type in the site address, will you be able to navigate to that site? What are you doing when you visit that site? You are basically reading over there, isn't it? You are reading for the content. And then you again go on to another site. Many of the textbooks that we read are easily available as ebooks in the present day. So you are always trying to get hold of the ebook if you can't find the actual physical copy, the hard copy of the book. In fact, during the lockdown, I would say that for many students and scholars, ebooks were kind of a lifeline. So we live surrounded by a world of texts and we are reading them all the time. Now, what basically is reading? So it's a process, isn't it? To begin with, you might say it's a process. It's an ongoing thing. It is a negotiation. Something is taking place all the time. It's never static, isn't it? So the process of interaction or the recognition of written words or the script on the page in order to derive meaning from it. That's what it is, isn't it? A negotiation that takes place between the reader and the text. So certain basic presuppositions are therefore that we need a text which was to be read and a reader who is reading. Okay, so reading is the you can say the negotiation process between the reader and the text. Okay, and the kind of mutual exchange is is taking place all the time. Now, what are the kinds of readers and how much will a particular reader be able to extract from a text? You might say that at the very basic level, we have basic readers, those who are conversant with the literacy skills. So they are able to read and they are able to make sense of what they are reading. Okay. So, but that is at a very basic level. Uh, More advanced readers will be able to understand and negotiate with a lot more information. Okay. They will get information on possible underlying meanings or hidden meanings in the text. Okay, so I'd like to give a small example. There's a child who has been reading a fairy story, which is very popular, and that is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I think you are all acquainted with the story. Now, when she was a child, several years back, and she read the book, she was very happy with the story and all about Snow White and her flight through the woods and the help that was given to her by the dwarfs, and um, used to derive a lot of enjoyment from it. But now, after several years, she asked me a question. Okay, that was, why does the wicked stepmother ask the question, who is the fairest of them all? Okay, now, what's so strange about the question? I asked. Then she said, no, the fact is that I'm trying to say is that why does the text emphasize that the heroine, Snow White, has to be such a fair person? So I said, no, don't be misled by it. This fair over here is an old word which means actually beautiful. She said, no, there is this emphasis on physical fairness, isn't it? Because Snow White is said to be as white as snow. Yes, that's right, I said. So that's possibly because it's a Eurocentric book. Then she said, yes. You see, there are people of other complexions, okay, even darker complexions, who are beautiful. So the text seems to imply that only people with fair complexions can be beautiful. So there is a kind of a racist subtext in the fairy story. Well, I was quite taken with this interpretation, as a matter of fact. And what I'm trying to say is that an advanced reader will possibly get more hidden meanings out of the text. Okay, let's go further. Okay, so we live, as I said, surrounded by a world of texts all around us, right from the time we get up from bed to the time that we go to bed. There are text and media messages on the smartphone which keep coming in. There are newspapers and magazines online. There are social media posts, bus and train route maps, numbers, road signs, hoardings, shop signs, banners. There are also documents like reports, letters, emails. Now, there are also ebooks and web materials. Now, the question is, if we are reading, why are we reading this wide variety of material? So, why do we read the following texts like Robinson Crusoe, for example, or Embroidery Made Simple, Growing Medicinal Plants, A Treatise in Medicine, or Kick Baking Easy Steps? Now, I would say that basically there are two purposes behind our reading. One is to get instruction, and the second is to get an entertainment. Now, reading provides us unalloyed pleasure and sometimes a bit of both. You might say, for example, if you take the samples given over here, Robinson Crusoe is a book. It's a very well-known storybook. So it's about the travails of the hero, Robinson Crusoe, when he's shipwrecked on a desert island. So we read that story mainly for action and adventure, okay, and the events that are over there. Then Embroidery Made Simple. This is about a practical application, okay, of a skill, you can say. Then growing medicinal plants, it will give you information about how to grow them and their natural habitat. A cake baking in easy steps, again, that is there to give you some instructions, okay, about cake baking. So we read, basically, you can see, for two purposes. One is to get instruction, the other is to get entertainment. Okay, so whatever we do, these are the two basic purposes for which we read. Now, what do we read? We read books, other hard copy texts, various soft copy materials. Now, most of the ways of reading include Reading can be either silent reading when we read to ourselves or reading aloud. Like, for example, when we are reading aloud stories to children. Now, age to reading can be a good memory and concentration and a suitable environment and ambience. Okay. Now, look at this text. I think we can illustrate with the help of using certain techniques. You look at the title. How can I get to the post office? Then read the following instructions. Do not read every word at this stage. Okay, read the caption, read the first lines of each paragraph. Then you read the last lines of each paragraph. What kind of text is it? And what is the context, and do we need the textual glosses or notes? Now, you look at the first couple of lines of the text and the title. Title is How Can I Get to the Post Office? So it's asking, obviously asking for some directions, right? You read the first line in the first paragraph. I have a special rule for travel: never carry maps. Okay, I prefer to ask for directions. Sometimes I learn to mm, uh, I beg your pardon. This is the second line of the first paragraph. I read the first line of the first paragraph, then the first line of the second paragraph. Foreign tourists often confused in Japan because most streets don't have names. Okay. Then the first line of the third paragraph. In the countryside, the American Midwest, there are not really many landmarks. Okay. So uh, if this is it, then I think since we are talking about a particular place and how to locate it, then this whole uh, text boils down to the fact that it's asking about landmarks and locations, or how to get recognizable locations and specific landmarks so that you can even walk, okay, to that place if it is necessary. Okay. Right. So are we reading it line by line? The first thing to remember is don't read this text word by word. Don't read it line by line. Don't read every word. Don't read every line. Now, only just skim through it. Skimming is basically a metaphor which we take from the dairy treatment of milk or the processing of milk. When milk is skimmed, then when the cream rises to the top, the layer of cream is taken off the milk. That means over here, what it's trying to say is that you need to get the gist of the passage. Okay, now you need to get the gist of the passage, and what you get through reading is an idea, overall idea about the text. We're not able to give more detailed ideas because that would require greater understanding and analysis. Okay, now what are the different purposes behind our reading? Do we read different books in the same way or in different ways? Now, the purpose of our reading, the speed of our reading would depend on, for example, the length of the text, that is how vast it is, the complexity or the difficulty level of the text, then the reader's abilities. The ways of increasing the reading speed are something that we have to look at. These are, skimming and scanning to begin with. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we are. Some of the some of the rapid reading techniques are surveying, skimming, and scanning. And one of the slow reading techniques is intensive reading. Now, what do you do when you survey? You must often have done the name of aerial survey. Okay, so what do you do when there's an aerial survey? You go up in a helicopter to survey the nearby the territory. Okay, so that's called the aerial survey. Now here, of course, it's a bookish survey that we are doing, not an aerial survey. And just like over there, it's a large tract of territory. Similarly, over here, we are viewing the entire landscape, and only a few spots of greenery are showing the highlights. Okay, now what are the things that we have to look at over here? First, we have to look at the titles. Okay, look at the titles of the book, then look at the chapter titles, the section headings, then look at the maps, charts, or diagrams. Okay, read any glosses such as um, you know, different kinds of descriptions which might be given, or chapter summaries might also be given. So read these, they will give you a quick and selective view of the contents of the text. Now, skimming is this rapid reading strategy which is used for longish texts. Now, the aim of skimming is to get an overall idea or a gist of the contents. Okay. Now, we don't need to go into details at this stage. Okay. So don't try to read it word for word. Quickly glance through the text, quickly underline the main points, and uh, look at the pictures and the illustrations. And from reading, what emerges is a brief idea regarding the content of the designated text. Now, one good idea that I can share with you is that when you have the skimming passage, you sit down with a pen or pencil in hand, and you are able to jot down the important points or key points or the keywords. Okay, when keywords crop up, then what are they? They are the important words that occur at various intervals through the text, or that keep occurring. For example, if you have a passage in which the word nuclear is used, say, 10 or 15 times, then you will understand that this is something that has an important role to play in that paragraph. Okay, so surveying is one method and skimming is another. Now, in skimming, we don't read the text word for word, and we quickly glance throughout the text and underline the main points. Also, look at pictures and illustrations. From the reading text, what emerges is a brief idea regarding the content, and this is also called rapid survey reading. Okay, let's see. Okay, let us see. Okay, so basically, I'm not reading the text word by word or line by line. I'm quickly glancing my eyes through the text and underline the main points. Also noting the illustrations and pictures, and from what emerges out of all this is a brief idea regarding the content given by the designated writer. This is also called rapid survey reading. Okay, here is a sample passage, for example. You have to skim this passage, look for keywords, and read the first and the line of the last paragraphs. Now, skip as much as possible. Try to predict the kind of text it is. Okay, so what we do when we are skimming is that we have a watch. So we time ourselves by the watch. So let's say I have 1 or 2 minutes of time to spare. Now, within that, the skimming exercise will have to be done. Okay, let's read out. Can anything diffuse the demographic time bomb? Fox urges reinvesting in children uh, needs to be bypassed, improving schools, creating after schools programs, and providing other alternatives to gangs and drugs. Dilulo, law and order conservative, advocates tougher prosecution, wants to strengthen religious institutions to instill better values. Yes, he opposes the Gingrich-led effort to make a deep cut in social programs. A failure to maintain existing welfare and health commitment for kids, he says, is social. So it is to guarantee that the next wave of juvenile predators will be even more than we are dealing with today. Um, DUDO urges the fellow conservatives to think of Medicaid not as a healthcare program, but as an anti-crime policy. So basically, we have to look for keywords and read the first of the lines of the last paragraphs and skip as much as is possible. Okay. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Now, since we have looked at skimming, now it's time to look at scanning. Now, the aim of scanning, unlike that of skimming, is to get some specific information. Now, the time taken is less than 1 minute, and the technique is to be prepared in advance so as to locate the items. Okay, underline, count, summarize, or whatever is task that is given, and distinguish between similar seeming information. So this is the challenge actually. Um, you have information given which is nearly the same or it is alike, but the way that what you are reading, uh, the specifics of that is asked for, you will read only that, or you confine yourself to that. For example, if there is a passage on the growth of season flowers in winter, and you are asked the names of only those season flowers which begin with P, so then your task is very much shortened because you will be focusing on only those which are required and not on the others. So here also it will be quite profitable if you were to sit with a pen or pencil in hand and mark out the mm, repeated words or the words which are there for emphasis, and in this way you try and do justice to the text. Okay, we have one sample text in scanning as well. Now read the first line. We all eat food every day to survive. The food that we eat is made up of different types of nutrients, and carbohydrates are important as they give us the main source of energy. Okay, so I think even a summary of this passage can be done. Okay, now what is this passage about? Basically, it is about food and about eating. Now, how many food categories are mentioned? We have several categories which are mentioned, like we have nutrients, we have carbohydrates, fruit and vegetables, dairy, protein, or fats. Okay, now basically you might get different kinds of questions like spot the different types of nutrients. How many types of nutrients are there? Then what about the different categories of food? Okay, who needs the carbohydrates? So these and other questions one can answer. Okay. Okay, there is an SQR technique which I will do the next day. Now is the time to share certain materials. Okay, if you look at the handout that I've shared with you, uh, teaching reading skills, skimming and scanning. What is skimming? Skimming is reading a text quickly to find out that the general theme or topic or meaning. It's useful for pre-reading tasks or texts that don't require a lot of detailed attention, and there's no need to read every word. The focus is improving the speed of reading. Okay. Now, what is scanning? Scanning is a reading of a text quickly in order to find the specific information. Like, for example, the figures of odd names. It is also useful for answering exam type questions which ask for true or false or to discover texts. Now, the objective is to search for and find out relevant words, collocations, etc. The focus is more on lexis than uh, general meaning, and to ignore the irrelevant information. So I think we will be doing more samples in the class the next time, and I'll be sharing the materials with you. Okay. So see you again the next day. Keep well. Bye.